Matt Dubin, Washington State personal injury attorney, back for my third installment of FAQ Friday, where I answer your questions about personal injury, insurance claims, or really anything having to do with lawsuits, injuries, claims. I'm here for you. I love the questions that have been coming in, and I encourage anyone who sees this to ask me any questions that you've got. Share these videos with your friends. Frankly, anyone who drives or uses the road can use this information, and I want to be a resource for you. So whatever's on your mind, let me know, and we'll get your questions answered. So let's get right to it. We've got two questions this week that I'm going to address. The first question is from Priscilla, who asked, what do I do if I'm in a car accident and the other driver doesn't have insurance? And this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, because although Washington law requires that everyone have at least $25,000 of liability insurance, the sad reality is that something approaching 20% of drivers on the road in Washington have no insurance at all. I'll take it even one step further, because of those who do have insurance, almost half of them have the minimum required by law in Washington, which is $25,000. And that's fine if you have a little fender bender and a very minor injury, but for most cases, your damages could exceed $25,000 very quickly, very easily. And so what do you do? Well, you could sue the uninsured person and try and get a recovery from them. And there are procedures to see what assets they have and to have the sheriff or the police seize their assets, seize their bank accounts. You could try and get the money that way. The reality is it takes a really long time and it hardly ever works. So even if you get a judgment against the uninsured person, you're not very likely to see any of that money in the future. The second and much better alternative is for you to have uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage through your own auto insurance. Now in Washington, they come together. If you have one, you have both. And it's called UIM. And you can get that in any amount up to the amount of your liability insurance. So if you have $500,000 of liability insurance with your auto insurer, you could also have $500,000 of uninsured, underinsured coverage. And that will act as if it was the insurance for the other driver, the uninsured driver or the underinsured driver. And now that being said, they'll fight you just as if they were the other driver's company. So they'll try and dispute it was their fault. They'll try and dispute you were really hurt. They'll dispute that your treatment was reasonable. They'll dispute the value of your pain and suffering. That's just what they do. They're insurance companies. They're in it to make a profit. So even though in a situation like this, you'll be making a claim against your own insurance company under your UIM coverage, it still is essential that you have an experienced personal injury attorney on your side, someone who knows what your rights are and is prepared to defend them and fight to get you the recovery that the law says you're entitled to. Because the insurance company will try to avoid paying you that if they can, and if you don't have a lawyer, it's likely that they'll get away with it. So I hope that answers your question, Priscilla. Thanks a lot for asking. And the next question is a difficult one, and it comes from Billy. And Billy asked, a friend asked me about what remedy exists for when another dog comes on your property and attacks and kills your own dogs. Can a dog be considered part of the family for emotional damages? So I have a dog and two cats, and I've had animals die due to accidents, due to the carelessness of others. And so this is an issue that has personal significance to me, and I've done the research. And this is a field of law that I think is changing around the country. But right now, for the most part, the Washington approach is the majority approach around the country, which is that your pets are considered property. And if someone is careless and it results in injury or death to your pet, to your family pet, that you're entitled to the monetary value of that animal. So if it's a purebred and it costs 500 or 1,000 or 2,000, you may be entitled to that. You might also be entitled to consequential damages, which are additional, vet bills, cremation expenses, costs involved with initial vet bills, vaccinations, and initial vet bills for a replacement animal. And that's how the law in Washington generally treats the loss of a pet, that if it was just carelessness, like somebody didn't properly tie up their dogs and they come into your yard and kill them, that's all that the law will give you. And this was affirmed in a Washington State Supreme Court case in 2004. Exactly that situation. A person's dog was mauled by someone else's dogs, and the court specifically said that the loss of companionship could not be extended to cases involving the death of a dog. Now, there is an exception to this rule in Washington, which is if the injury or death of the pet is a result of malicious injury, malicious misconduct. So in other words, if someone intentionally harms your pet, then the Supreme Court said that the court could consider the emotional distress of the pet owner. So right now in Washington, if someone is careless and it results in injury or death to your pet, no, the only damages you're entitled to is the replacement value of the pet, unless you can show that the injury or death was the result of some kind of malicious misconduct, in which case you might be able to recover something for emotional distress in addition to the financial value of the pet. I hope that this law changes in the future. I think the law should recognize that companion animals, pets, cats and dogs and others, are important parts of people's family, and that they provide tremendous intangible benefits that you can't put a monetary value on, and that if someone is careless and that results in the loss of a family pet, then you should be entitled to get a recovery for that, or at least have a jury determine whether your and your family's emotional distress is worth something. I think that is the trend that we're seeing in other jurisdictions, and I think that's something we'll see in the future here in Washington and across the country. So that's it for today's FAQ Friday. For Priscilla and for everyone out there, make sure you have uninsured motorist coverage and really get as much as you can afford. There are too many uninsured drivers out there, and the only real effective way to protect yourself is to make sure that you have high limits of uninsured motorist coverage. No one else is going to do it for you. You need to do it for yourself. And for Billy, I'm so sorry about your friend's loss of his family dogs. There's no amount of money that can make up for that. And as I discussed, right now, his only remedy would be the replacement value of the dogs, sadly. And as I said, I hope that changes. So that's it. This is my third episode of FAQ Friday. I hope you are enjoying it and appreciating the answers to your questions. And it looks like Eric Heller just joined. Hi, Eric. Good to see you online. For anyone who has questions or knows somebody that might, if you have kids that are driving or you're walking around or taking mass transit, if you have questions about your car insurance, personal injury claims of any kind, just let me know, put it in the comments, and I'll address it in a future FAQ Friday. And so from me and everyone here at the law offices of Matthew Dubin, be safe, enjoy the rest of your summer, and I'll see you next Friday on FAQ Friday. Thanks a lot.